Welcome to PopTernative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, a.k.a. PD Beats.
Hello and welcome to the PopTernative podcast here on Blab. This is the podcast where we have digital dialogues on the worlds of social media, sports, and pop culture. As always, I am your host, Peter Remoliotis, and on Twitter I go as PD Beats. This is actually the last 2015 episode of PopTernative. We're going to take a 2-week break after this episode. So I'm really excited, how the podcast has gone so far. I want to thank everyone for the support. It's been amazing. But tonight we have an amazing panel. We're going to talk about social media. We're going to talk about sports. We're going to talk about content creation management. I'm really happy with what we have. So we have on the panel tonight, we have social media director for the Edmonton Oilers. We have Ryan Frankson. Ryan, welcome.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
We have, I believe it's senior digital manager for the Phoenix Suns in the NBA. We have Gregory Esposito. Is that correct?
Yeah, we can go with that. Yeah, that's the title, and I don't know what it means, but that's what's on the business card.
And we have a reporter from TSN. We have Matthew Scianitti. Matthew, welcome.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for having me, and happy holidays.
Yeah, happy holidays to you. I had to wear the ugly sweater, the social media sweater, with the emojis. It's pretty good. So yeah, let's the usual thing we do on PopTernative. Let's go around and you can introduce yourself and give us a little bio. So Ryan, let's start with you.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, I'm in charge of the social for the Oilers, the NHL. I'm actually in Chicago right now. I get to travel with this team on this trip, which is I'm pretty fortunate to be there with them on this trip. There's about 7 of us who rotate through 3 spots for digital media, whether it's video, social, web content. So I get to travel, not all the time, but a few times, and I happen to be on this one. So I'm checking in from Chicago. Enjoying this trip to some really cool cities so far. And yeah, I've been with the company for 5 years this past summer. It's my 5th NHL season. I did 1 year covering our junior team, working all communications for the Edmonton Oil Kings and the independent baseball team we had at the time. And yeah, I've been doing strictly Oilers social for the last 5.
Perfect. Matthew, what about you?
Well, TSN now for 3 years. Before that, I was a sports reporter with the National Post. For the Americans watching, it's a national newspaper in Canada. Before that, I worked for CBC Sports. Did a lot of their social media and internet side, web editing, and writing. But yeah, TSN, I do everything at TSN at this point right now because Mark Masters, who typically covers the Leafs, is covering the World Junior Hockey Championships in Finland. I'm covering the Leafs right now. I typically do a lot of football, a lot of Canadian football, some NFL, and some NBA. So oftentimes, once a week, twice a week, I'm here, there, and everywhere. So right now I'm on my couch, and I'm pretty happy to be here with you guys.
Perfect. Espo, it's all you, man.
Yeah. All right, I'm Greg Esposito. I am a social media addict and happen to make it a profession. I work for the Phoenix Suns. Been here. This is my 5th season with the team. I started as strictly our social media kind of person, handling all our social channels, and quickly evolved into being a writer for the site, host of our online video, and managing our content creation across all digital platforms. So I've been there 5 years. Prior to that, I worked for Arizona Sports, which is the local online and sports radio station, top station in the state. So I was there for a while running their digital properties as well. So I do a little bit of everything for the Phoenix Suns right now, though.
Perfect. Yeah, so I think, with the panel we have, the conversation I want to have, a casual conversation. Of course, I have, specific questions for all of you specifically in terms of, your profession, what you do. But, we have 2 people in Greg and Ryan that manage and create content for professional sports teams. And we have, a reporter in Matt who, social media is, a big part of your job, right, Matt?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, especially now, it's funny. Not to go ahead and interject, but really, we all have to be content creators. I mean, the big buzzword now you always hear is platform agnostic, which is you shouldn't be married to just television or print. You have to embrace Snapchat. You have to embrace Blab. You have to embrace Twitter and Instagram and everything. And that's whether you work for a team or you're a reporter, you have to be able to create content because everyone is consuming it on every kind of platform, and you can't be just so strict and adhere to one. So we all have to create content. We all have to create content all the time.
No, that was a really good introduction. That was kind of similar to what I was gonna say. But
sorry to steal your thunder.
No, that's awesome. Right off the bat, Greg, Ryan, can you comment on that? What do you think about this whole concept of we're nonstop, content creators?
Well, in our world on the team side, it's a necessity. There's always something going on. I basically am on call 24/7, 365. Doesn't matter if it's a holiday. Doesn't matter if it's 4 a.m. If something goes on with the Phoenix Suns, I have to be there creating content across platforms, or at least managing my team of content creators to make sure we're covering it from all angles. And it's not just team coverage as well. It's marketing, it's ticket sales, it's marketing partnership messages. From the team side, it's across the board. So I think it is completely, you've got to be platform agnostic and be willing to do anything. When I came in, social media was basically writing witty one-liners was the gist of it. Well, now I have to be able to edit with Photoshop. I have to be able to take photos with DSLRs and be able to basically produce any kind of content across all those platforms and manage our website as well.
Yeah, Ryan, absolutely. It's kind of that versatility is something you've definitely seen grow and continue to grow. That's something that we're trying to do more and more of too, is get everyone in our digital media department kind of capable doing every aspect of the world. And just you mentioned Snapchat there, Matthew. Like, it's every platform has kind of its own individual niche skill set too. So it's just a matter of evolving and kind of figuring out what you need to be like excellent at to excel on those as well.
And it's funny, and it's I learned something very recently at the Grey Cup, the Canadian Football League Championship, and I was talking to someone who also works at TSN, and we were discussing Instagram, for example, and various ways of kind of breaking through the noise and ways of taking photos and content and creating little moments that are different than what you might be scrolling through on your feed in Instagram. And an example is Mike Riley lifting the Grey Cup at the end of the game. Taking a static photo of him isn't something that's going to catch people's eye. That's not the content that people want to see. But maybe thinking differently and thinking actively and slow and having a slow-mo photo of him with the confetti falling and kind of creating a contrast. I mean, when you're looking at content, it's, again, you guys are right. It's no longer witty one-liners like the Los Angeles Kings Twitter account was known for so long. You have to think about slow-mo shots, time-lapse shots, GIFs, memes. Like, you have to, not just people who work for teams, although, it's funny, I'm sure we'll get into this, but content creators on the team side, they're also gatekeepers in a way, because they can show content in a certain way, but they have to stop because they also have to think about the teams that they work for. Or as a reporter, we have to go ahead and judge sometimes where that line is, because we're not paid by teams. We're not paid by anybody. We have our companies and our producers and our editors, and we have to sometimes judge on the fly the content that we're sending out there and whether or not it's crossing a line, whether or not there are any conflicts of interest. So really now, if you're getting into the business, you have to be able to think dynamically, because there's a choice that you could be making, not just to press that tweet, but the picture you take, how you post it, what you post, when you post. You have to be thinking about it constantly.
Yeah, and I don't think it's that different from the team side and the media side. I haven't been on both sides of it. It's the same kind of discipline and thought process. It's just you have to take different factors into consideration. But yeah, you're completely right. You have to be able to judge on the fly what's going to play well. What do people really want? Have that instinct and really put it to use in the immediacy. It's not the way it used to be, and even still sometimes on the TV production side, where you can capture something and sit there and try to figure out, well, what should I do with it? I've got 4 hours before we go to air. You're doing it in the moment now and trying to create the most compelling, most interesting, and most unique content all in a matter of seconds.
Ryan, go ahead. I was just going to...
Yeah, I mean, it's that immediacy that's becoming more and more of a skill too. Like you said, so much of the big game content, many people are going to be wanting to put that content out first, and just a matter of phrasing your post the right way, and whether it's quickly editing a photo the right way, putting your slow-mo effect on the video, it's becoming a very valuable asset to be able to do all of that within a few seconds and be the first team or the first reporter to get that out there, thus likely getting the most eyeballs and the most engagement.
What are some of the tactics that we can use then to make sure that we get as much as possible out of social media when it comes to, creating content for, your followers, your fans? There's, like we said, like Matt, your first, like when we first talked about this, you talked about how there's now so many social media platforms to use, like Snapchat, Instagram as well. How do we make sure, especially, for Ryan and Greg, your case too, with the pro teams, how do we make sure that there's a balance in terms of what gets, pumped out from each, platform, and whether, there's kind of different stuff going on, your Instagram account versus, the Twitter account, because you don't want to make it maybe that like super similar because, they're different platforms, right? You want to make sure there's different content on each. Like, what are some of the tactics that you guys can use in terms of like creating proper, content and calendar wise, or to make sure that you use everything as much as you can? Because there's so much stuff out there to use and so much content to be discovered. Greg, what do you think about that?
I think that the toughest thing, I've tried content calendars a lot, and in our world, especially from a team side, in season, there's only so much you can plan for. You know when the games are, what kind of preview content you'll do across a platform, but in game, it's instinctual. You've got to have the instincts on it and try to figure it out and understand, okay, if I'm going to use this type of photo on Instagram, I'm not going to go that route on a Twitter. I've got to think through it and go, okay, then I'm going to go with a different kind of photo and a different type of caption for a Twitter. And then how am I going to utilize Vine for a video? Am I going to put my highlight there, or am I going to natively post it on Twitter? For me and my team, it's trusting those instincts, those things that we've known, we've talked about, and trusting those instincts in the moment. There's not as much planning as you can do. You can have things like, GIFs or GIFs, however you prefer to pronounce it, prepared. That's a whole nother debate that we probably don't want to get into, but nobody ever can seem to agree on that. But you can have those things prepared and create, player and team specific GIFs or memes and have those at your disposal for in a game. But it's preparing those ahead of time, but then knowing your instinct on when to use them, what platform to use them. Obviously, GIFs pretty much are Twitter specific. Highlights and videos can go across those platforms, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. From a team perspective, it's just trusting those instincts, having prepared and thought about what would be the best platform for what things, and then trusting that your instincts in the moment.
Matt,
I would say.
Oh, Ryan, go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say, and 95% of the time, it's that spontaneous, spur-of-the-moment post that's going to do the best, because particularly game coverage, I mean, you're posting with your fans. You're trying to feed off the emotion that they're feeling in that moment. So how do you know how you're going to feel in that moment until it happens? And that's I think the ability to kind of translate that emotion into what you're putting out there that's the gold right there.
Well, yeah, I think you have to be flexible too, willing to try different things and learn different things. To be quite frank, a year ago, didn't use emojis. I didn't think it really fit with our brand or what we were doing, and we noticed that started to be the trend. So I taught myself on it. I taught my guys about it and how to think and use those as well. Flexibility is a huge key in those moments too.
And a lot of times and I think all four of us understand, but maybe the casual fan doesn't appreciate the kind of thought process we go through. But to break through the noise, people want to see things that they don't normally see. It's not a highlight per se, because you can see a highlight. There are memes generated. I mean, there are algorithms now that generate memes instantly. Fans want to see stuff, especially either up close. They love to see detail, or they love to see stuff behind the scenes. They love to see players getting ready. They love to see little quirks if it's hockey. They love to see, I'm sure, Ryan, you know this better than anybody. They love to see maybe the bend in Taylor Hall. What kind of stick does he use? How is he tying his skate today? What kind of tape is he using? What's going on with his equipment? I mean, they love details. They love little things. Because fans, ultimately, when they feel informed, they feel they can talk about the game, they feel they're closer to the game. And being flexible and kind of managing spontaneity with ingenuity is tough, because sometimes you think you have a great idea and it falls flat and it doesn't work. But when you can see, and I think the way I try to approach it is, what do people want to see that I get to see every day behind the scenes that I think is normal, that people who are coming to a game for the first time or maybe watching at home wouldn't be able to see. And sometimes you miss those opportunities and you think about it later, like, oh, geez, I had that great tweet or great photo on Instagram, or this would have been great for Snapchat. And for a reporter, when we have to juggle, an assignment and an interview and all these things, we really now, particularly at TSN, are trying to be very forward-thinking when it comes to putting our content on those social media platforms. And it's interesting, from where we are, it's very true. I mean, you can't deny it. From our perspective, it's what can be monetized quickly. And we look at Twitter as something that we can't necessarily push our brand and activate our brand on quickly. It is Snapchat. It is Instagram. So that's something we have to think about too. I mean, if you overload Twitter, then you're not giving TSN an opportunity on the other platforms to push and to gain traction as a brand. So there are so many little details that fans don't really realize. It's not just showing you what you may want to see, but it's how we show you, where we show you, when we show you. So it's this is not, especially from the team perspective and from a reporter perspective, it's never easy to find content that people want to see all the time that benefits us in the same way.
Yeah, very quickly too. To speak to Ryan, what you said about having to be quick. Sometimes the best content is stuff you don't plan. It just happens. And I'm sure all three of us are familiar with that fantastic Harlem Globetrotters tweet that came out last week, a couple weeks ago. So I gotta tell you, I got some scoop about that too, because Brian Penter, who is who's responsible for that tweet, he's gonna come on the show in the new year, but he just started at the Harlem Globe. So talk about making a good impression. Like, he was a week and a half into the job and he made that tweet. So it kind of goes a bit what you say too, like what Greg, you said about like content calendars. And I think it's true, you can't some of the stuff you can't plan. It has to do with what happens in the game. I don't think Ryan, people did not plan Connor McDavid getting injured. So I think that was a lot of content was created around that, and I don't think that you can't plan that. You don't wake up October in the first week of October be like, McDavid's getting injured, we're gonna make this tweet tomorrow. McDavidge is what I saw once. Someone tweeted. Someone thought they were funny, and then what you, Matt, what you said as well. the behind the scenes thing, I think, is why social media and sports and why it's skyrocketed, I think, in our industry. I think that's something that, when I wrote my master's research essay on the LA Kings and their social media in relation to brand equity and fan engagement, it was all about kind of giving, the fan access to information and content that you can't see, like you can't ordinarily see, behind the scenes backdrop type stuff. So I think you're 100% right about that. But I actually have, a question for Ryan. There's a reason why I brought up the McDavid injury, because it has to do with my next question. That's like a big moment where there's going to be so much stuff getting pumped out, from the Oilers account, but from fans, and a lot of people are going to, tweet negative things. And, it's going to be situations where you're behind that account, and there might be situations where you're like, oh man, this guy's really annoying, what do I do? But what are some of the things that you use in those pressure situations where it's it's so, you get so emotionally involved in what's going on? You don't want to tweet something that's too edgy. You don't want to feed the egos of these trolls or people who are chirping. Like, how do you manage that? Because it is. I do the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. It's tough because when something big happens, there's just a flood of stuff that comes up in my feed, Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, in a situation like that, the PR hat pretty much goes on first, rather than the engagement hat. At that point, you really think about like what is best for the organization at that moment, and that is basically working with our hockey PR team, just working with them, like when can we make an announcement? What are we going to say? How much can we say? Can we add any kind of comment to the announcement? And just kind of working with those guys when that situation happens. And yeah, you're not really like, there's going to be plenty of engagement and interest when you do put something out. So it's not like you're freaking out and rushing to comment on it. When you work for the organization in a situation like that, the PR hat goes on right away, and you're treading carefully and making sure it's calculated, and you work with the PR staff to put out the best way to say.
But even if you're not commenting or replying to any of the stuff, it must be crazy, to be, on your computer at a game and just seeing all this stuff coming, you know what I mean? You're just like, wow, like, how do I even process all of this? It's all happening so quick. It's nonstop, you know what I mean? It's instant, like Matt said, it's a crazy world, the social media world in sports. It's so quick, and everyone, has access, and well, not everyone, but a lot of people, have access to their phones while they're watching and live tweeting a game. I think, there's not as much dialogues around this whole concept of, these fans being very quick and, really their ability to, be scrutinizers and all that. Matt, you were shaking your head.
Well, this is where something I can't understand from both Greg and Ryan's perspective, because they have to think about things in three ways. They got to think about the PR angle. They have to think about the fans.
Yeah.
And Ryan, I'm sure you're also watching Ryan Rashog's Twitter account, and you're also taking a look at what Gene Principe is saying and Terry Jones, who are all Edmonton Oilers beat guys. And you've got to be conscious of what they're saying, because you also have to let the PR guys know. You have to let the team know what the fans might be saying. I mean, Greg, I'm sure you can, from the NBA perspective, I cover the Raptors too, and dealing with Jim LeBombard, who does the Raptors media account. He's always locked into what the press is saying, and that's the line that's tough, because our job oftentimes isn't to be careful. Our job is to just put it out there, and if we know something, we say something. You guys almost have to be the opposite, which is if Peter Chiarelli wants to go ahead, like Peter Chiarelli was the guy who was supposed to let everybody know what's going on, give the update. But if you guys cannot help if someone else in the organization is telling Ryan Rishaug, for example, what's going on, I mean, it's, as Greg was saying before, he's got to be aware to be up at 4 a.m. because if Adrian Wojnarowski goes ahead and tweets something about the Phoenix Suns, about a player they're signing or a player who's going to be traded, he's got to be up and aware and kind of be able to respond to that. So the line between being a reporter and someone who works for a team or a corporation, our job is to sometimes, most of the time, all the time, be proactive, whereas someone who works for a team has to be proactive and reactive all the time.
Well, we basically work for every department in the company too, which is, at least in my case, you're answering to your marketing partners. So you always got to think, if I'm going to use a GIF and we have a Kia partnership, well, I probably shouldn't use a random Chevy in this, or which is, I've actually legitimately run into those issues in the past. You've got to think, okay, well, I can't disseminate any information that basketball operations or our basketball PR team or our business PR team isn't ready to have out there in the marketplace. I've got to make sure I'm getting ticket sales messaging out there in a way that they want. And then to the other part, when you're asking about responding to trolls or those kind of things and thinking about it, you have to pick and choose your spots. There's a lot of things. I grew up a Suns fan, so I have skin in the game, if you will. I love the team. I have a lot of personal opinions, but I have to pick and choose the situations that fit our brand best. I have to be true to what our overarching brand is. Now, I tend to be a fairly sarcastic guy that likes to sometimes push the envelope myself, but that isn't our brand. I can get somewhat sarcastic. A couple examples. One time we had a guy tweet at us, "You guys need to stop playing like a bunch of girls and start playing like men to try to win this game." Well, I went, okay, this is an opportunity for our brand to shine because we have a WNBA team that's one of the most successful in the league. So we quote tweeted that guy and said, well, that's ironic because some of the best people we know that play basketball are women. Isn't that right? At Phoenix Mercury, who happens to be our WNBA team. Yeah. And that got a lot of great engagement because we were standing up for women, and in particular the women on our WNBA team. And then another one more recently, we had a guy tweet us, why haven't you guys ever made the Super Bowl? And it was during a nationally televised game, and I'm sitting there looking at this going, what? Really? This is so we quote tweet the guy and we simply say, hey, at NFL, do you want to take care of this one?
I saw that. I remember that one.
They responded, no, we don't really. We're going to leave that one alone. And we responded back, oh, thanks at NFL. So like, if you're going to pick one, you can have some fun as your brand and really be true to it. The Kings were always good at it, but they had the ability or the leniency of having won a Stanley Cup. I'm in a situation, the 5 years I've been with the Suns, we haven't been in the playoffs. So I have to understand and know our role as an NBA team.
Oh, Ryan, you're in the same boat there, right?
Exact same, yeah. Exactly.
I'm sorry. I had to say.
It's easier when you're a champion, quite frankly, to try things and be a little edgier. When you're not, you've got to pick and choose your battles.
Yeah. Greg, are you familiar a little bit with hockey?
I am. A little more so when I wasn't working in the NBA and I had more time to actually watch other sports. But I grew up a Coyotes fan since '97 when they were here. I know a lot of the Canadian viewers probably aren't a big fan of me saying the Coyotes. We dealt with
the Winnipeg. You mean the old Winnipeg Jets? Yeah.
Yep. We dealt with plenty of Winnipeg people wanting that franchise back before the new incarnation of the Jets were there. But yeah, with a name like Esposito, I'm kind of forced to be a fan, and most of my family's from the East Coast of America. So I know NHL. I'm familiar with it.
Well, I think something quickly I want to say too. So PopTernative, you can have a lot of people come in and watch our show live, and we actually have Ryan and Matt. You're going to think it's pretty cool. So I work with the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, and I love having engagements and dialogues with a lot of the players that play in our league, and it's pretty awesome. that, a couple of them, are fans of the show. And we actually have a player, Mitchell Balmas, who plays for the Charlottetown Islanders, is actually tuned in right now. He's eligible for the draft coming up, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah. So he always tunes in from the time. But, it's a perfect segue to my next question. So a lot of people watch the show, and I've got a lot of comments about how insightful it can be. We have, I call people who, I call, the social media people and the sports media people, like Matt, I call them unsung heroes, because I think that what we do is something that, like, does not have as much, credit. And there's so much, like, for example, Ryan does a terrific job with the social media for the Edmonton Oilers. And, people know, oh yeah, the Oilers account's awesome, you know what I mean? But they don't know that it's Ryan who's doing that. So I created, PopTernative as a way to kind of give exposure to these unsung heroes. And one of the things, too, that people have told me is a lot of, students, because I did my master's in communications and I did my thesis on social media and sports. So a lot of students watch the show and think it's very insightful, a lot of the stuff we say. So the next, discussion I want to have for the remaining of the show is, as people, Matt, you working as a reporter, Ryan and Greg, working in social media for pro teams. What is some advice that you could give to, up and coming students and people who want to work in that industry, who are really passionate about social media and sports, that one day want to be in our footsteps and be involved? And what are some of the tips that you came across in your journeys? I just think that'd be a cool little discussion, because it's such a hot field right now. I think social media and sports, everyone wants to be involved somehow. So what are some of the things that we could say? Ryan, let's start with you, because
sure. Yeah, just like you two fellas, I have a journalism background as well. I did the community newspaper route for 5 years before I started working for the Oilers organization. So it kind of seems like that is the prominent path to get into more of that niche focus. I mean, when I knew I wanted to cover sports as a writer, and over that time, social media came to be, and I just kind of got more and more focused on it and more proficient at it. That's how I got into it. But I mean, I think it's getting into, whether it's a communications field or specifically journalism, or just something where those tools are going to come in handy when you're going to be, if you want to work in social. And I particularly in working for a team, and even in the sports media, there's so few opportunities. So you really can't, if you're summer internship for a third tier pro soccer team, if that's your opportunity to start managing a team account, you have to, swallow the pride, swallow the lack of pay, and do it, because there's nothing that beats out that experience of managing a team account and learning how to engage with fans. And that's often the most, the best learning opportunities there, because you have to really work to build that following. It's not built in like what we have the luxury of working with.
Mm-hmm. Matthew, what about you? Because, a lot of people, grow up, watch TSN. They see a lot of you, go on Sports Center or, covering the World Juniors. A lot of people are like, man, I want that. I want to see me, doing that in a couple of years. It's a very hot field right now, I guess.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I whenever I'm asked how I got onto TSN, I always tell people I never had a broadcasting degree. I went to York and then Ryerson University for my master's in journalism, and I wanted to be a magazine writer. And the fact is in order to be good at this profession now, you have to be willing to adapt all the time. And that's just not how you present yourself, whether it's through print or social media or broadcast. It's also the kind of brand you create. And first and foremost, your brand should be hard work. But beyond that, you have to find ways of distinguishing yourself. For me, you can see it on my icon. I love wearing Converse. I've worn Chuck Taylors for years, and I have dozens of them. And when I do CFL broadcasts, I always show people, maybe it's kind of the Craig Sager in me, but I always show people the funky shoes I'm wearing. and it generates a following, not just for me, but, what I might be reporting that day. You have to think that way. And, to Ryan's point, and he made it perfectly about, the third-tier soccer team and whatever opportunity you get. I started at CBC working the late night shifts on their website side. You have to be able to do it and find a way of making a brand for yourself, whether it's the sports you cover, whether you're covering figure skating to dodgeball. You have to be able to find a way of creating a social media presence, creating a presence through your work, and it will gain traction. I mean, you look at, use my counterpart, Mark Masters, for example. Mark has done a tremendous job, particularly with the World Juniors, and really building a brand for himself, and with also Tennis Canada. Yeah. He's done a tremendous job following Eugenie Bouchard and Milos Raonic. You find traction. It's the more you engage people, the more you, as I've said before, bring them into behind the scenes and what your everyday job is, whether it's your shoes or whether it's, perfect example, Mark did a great one-on-one with Milos Raonic where he kind of took it out of the realm of just like the stand and two-person shot to a one-person shot. He sat with Milos by the tennis net, Mark in his full suit, sweating, Milos after hitting a couple tennis balls, and they're just riffing, and it was tremendous. And that's what you have to think of. You have to think of things dynamically as a reporter, as a young reporter, and you can't limit yourself. That's what I tell young reporters all the time. Mark
and I went to the same university. Actually, we both went to Carleton University.
Well, I won't hold that against you because for Americans, they won't care. But think of Ryerson and Carleton when it comes to journalism school as like Michigan and the Ohio State University. It's like, there's a big rivalry there.
James Duffy also went to.
Jay Onright went to Ryerson, so we have a list of our alumnus that can measure up to anybody's list of alumnus.
It's funny because the two schools I applied to and got into were Ryerson and Carleton, and I chose to go to Carleton. So
nobody's perfect.
Greg, what about what about you? You've been with the Suns for a while now, and you go on a lot of you're like you said before we went on there. You're really into this type of stuff, these kind of dialogues about social media, sports, and kind of kind of paving the way and being kind of an influencer. There's a lot as social media sport chats that people host on Twitter. What do you think about that? What's some of the advice that you can give?
Well, first off, let me thank all of Canada for Jay and Dan because they're two of my favorite broadcasters now here stateside. So thank you for providing us with their brand of entertainment. It is truly unique. So, but in terms of advice, my biggest advice is put away the thought that this is glamorous, because while we get to see a lot of interesting things and experience a lot of interesting things, working in this industry will be the hardest work you ever put in, with the strangest hours, with the sometimes some of the most thankless work that you'll do at the start of it, and you have to embrace all of it and try to be as flexible and as willing to do whatever it takes to get the job done and try anything. I never imagined. I didn't go for a traditional journalism background. I always thought I was going to be in radio, host a show. I went to school for radio, television, and film. Never imagined I'd be a writer. Had a college professor my freshman year tell me I was the worst writer he had ever read.
I've heard that before too, yeah.
No lie. I'm not, and then all of a sudden, I'm starting to get paid to write. I started in minor league baseball, and it was out of necessity. In an internship, they said, well, you're kind of our media relations intern, our radio intern, but we got this website that we need recaps written. So we don't care how good you are at writing, figure it out. And then out of college, it was necessity. I started my own website with a college buddy because there weren't a lot of jobs at the time. So we were podcasting, and all of a sudden I was writing all the content for one of the first sports blogs in Phoenix. And I had to accept that, it was evolve or die. Either I learned to learn a new skill, I figured out a new skill, or my chance in this industry was dead. Mm-hmm. So I figured out how to write. social media came about 2 years into that site, and I thought, well, this Twitter thing's dumb. And then my buddy who was running it goes, no, you got to get in on this. So we got in on it, and I had to figure that out. And then it was my boss at the Sun said, photography is a huge part of what we have to do now. Here's a DSLR. Figure out how to be a cameraman. And then it was, we don't have anybody to host all our web videos. You're the most qualified, so get in front of the camera. We don't care if you feel like a guy that has no business in front of a camera that nobody wants to look at. You got to figure that out. So my biggest advice is be flexible. Be more flexible than a yoga instructor, because you're going to need it in this gig. You're going to have to figure out a lot of things on the fly, and it's not going to be comfortable. It's not going to be pretty the first few times you do it, but you have to be willing to do it, or one of the 2,000, 3,000 other people that want your job will be willing to, and you're going to be selling insurance pretty quick. So
yeah, that's exactly what I was told. When I got my job at TSN, my boss didn't say congratulations. He picked up the phone literally and said I could call 10,000 people right now and they would want your job like that. And then you just pantomime and hung up the phone. So that's a great point, Greg.
Well, and your point about branding too is huge. Figure out who you are and be true to it. And if you wind up on a team side, be as true to it as you can in terms of it, and bring some of that personality into what you're doing from a team side, because really personality and engagement is all any of us have right now. If you're not unique in some way and you just decide to go a cookie cutter route, well, you're not going to get anywhere. You
gotta have fun.
Yeah, you can't turn your social media feeds into basically a press release, because that's become a dumping ground.
Yeah. Absolutely. And, Ryan, so Ryan is actually, has been, I interviewed Ryan for, a piece that I wrote for a specific publication. Ryan said, you kind of want to get away from the robotronic, automatic, RSS feed, type of stuff. And very quickly before Ryan, because I have a question for you, but very quickly, getting back to having fun. I do the QMJHL social media. I love, this platform that I have where I'm allowed to, experiment and have fun and create, fun hashtags and puns. And, Matt, I made Bar Down actually with which I'm pretty happy. Bar Down actually tweeted out one of our tweets, because it was basically, we have a player on Acadie Bathurst named Vladimir Kuznetsov. He's not related to Evgeny Kuznetsov of the Capitals, but we have so we don't have that many resources available to us. We can't, we're a smaller league, so we can't use GIFs or memes, from like a lot of shows, like a lot of sports teams like in the NHL use Family Guy all the time, or The Office. We don't really use that, so we use the photos we have. So one photo we had was a photo of Kuznetsov, the back of his jersey. So I tweeted out just something, why did the goal not count? And, because if you say it very quickly, it sounds, Kuznetsov sounds like Kuznetsov. Kuznetsov. And, it blew up. And I think, that's something that a lot of people really liked. And Bar Down allowed it to blow up. And another thing, too, I was asking the question, but, not a lot of people know it's me, but I created 2-3 years ago a fan hockey account on Twitter called All Day Hockey, and it has about 16,000 followers. And, I did that just for fun, and it just, posts a lot of, memes and GIFs and just like a lot of hockey stuff. And I think that too is something that a lot of people should do too, right? Do your passions, write, create a blog, create an account. That can come a long way, right? Ducks and Pucks is a friend of mine, Mike Walters. They're not affiliated with the Anaheim Ducks at all, but they're a huge, online, fan account and podcast called Ducks and Pucks for Anaheim Ducks. They have over almost 20,000 followers, right? So, and that, in a couple of years, that can lead to something, right? And I'm sure Greg and Ryan, you are like associated with a lot of, you have interactions with a lot of fan accounts that are not affiliated with your team, but that maybe, you have interactions with once in a while, right? Like Ryan, I'm sure there's some Oiler fan accounts.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Tons. Oilers Nation is a big blog, and they have a lot of social media fun as well. And they're kind of a great resource for just like, they attract a lot of fan attention, and there's a lot of engagement that they get that we also get. It's just a great way to get the pulse about what the fans are talking about, what they're calling the new forward line that's doing really well. Like, how can we use the fan nicknames into our tweets to make it just cater more to them than we're catering to our own selves, and make it more about them. And yeah, just like what hashtags they're using for a player. I saw the tweet, like Skorpikoski. The fans were starting to use that, so I noticed it, and I'm like, well, they'd probably like that if the team account started using it too. So there we go.
I also had Charlottetown Islanders. Every time they win a game, I'd be like, did the Islanders win? I'll say yes. I was use that as well. I love the puns. The puns are fun. The Pittsburgh Penguins, Andy Perlman, she uses a lot of puns as well. It for sure. But Greg, there are like Phoenix Suns accounts as well that are like fan accounts that you interact with, and maybe leverage the ideas and content as well. No.
Oh yeah, and you have to keep a pulse on everything that's going around online with your fan base and fan sites. To be quite frank, I actually was one of those people. I started, like I had mentioned previously, a sports blog that covered Arizona sports and in particular the Phoenix Suns, and it was kind of how I got noticed and got into the media side of things, and then finally the team side. So I suggest if you're interested in this industry, go out and create a blog, tweet, do a podcast, and don't do it because, I'll get X amount of readers or get this many listeners. That's a byproduct of doing something you're passionate about. Do it to find your voice. Do it to figure out who you are and learn the craft. I wasn't a good writer initially. I got better at it because I learned who I was and how I wanted to write and what things worked and what didn't by just experimenting. So I highly recommend that to anybody that wants to get in this industry, is just try things. I mean, I'm still doing it on my personal time. I just launched a podcast myself just to talk about things I find interesting. Not for any other reason than I just wanted a creative outlet.
Yeah, my friend who just tuned in, I had on the show last year, Frankson, he does RDS. They're, Montreal, they're the French version out of Montreal of TSN. He is a big basketball guy. He had his own basketball fan website for many years too. So I totally agree.
Well, to your pun point, I'm a fan of a good pun, and I think that's one of the nice things about sports, outside of the people that have to cover news or really serious things. Sports kind of lets you have fun, be punny, if you will, with it. And I think that one of the reasons that people gravitate so much to sports Twitter is the fact that it is escapism, just like the game. It's kind of in the States replaced sports radio to a certain extent. It's, you don't take a lot of calls anymore in sports radio because most people have gravitated towards social media to share those ideas and make their jokes and have fun with it. That's what I love so much about sports social media.
No, for sure. Well, I think we had terrific dialogues. I thank all three of you for coming on the show. Right now, closing remarks. Also, if there's any accounts that you think are worth following, and Greg, you can't say War Jess Eagle because War Jess Eagle's mentioned every episode.
Oh, but that's great. That's the only one to say.
No, she's great. No, for sure. But literally 4 weeks in a row, I follow her. It's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite accounts to follow. But let's see if we get we can get some other ones in there.
But she paid me to mention her. I think that's how she's getting all the mentions. So for me, Chris Yandel is a great follow. He provides a unique perspective, and he comes from the college side of things, which is a complete different world. Derek Dockett is another great one, another guy from the college world, but they bring just interesting perspective in sports social media. And for me, I'm not afraid to listen to these people and borrow ideas, if you will, look at them. And those are two guys that I like to borrow from time to time.
Matt?
Well, in terms of, I don't know if you guys can hear me, in terms of accounts to follow, when it comes to social media, when it comes to team-oriented, I mean, I've taken a look at both Ryan and Greg's work, and it's fantastic. And, it's funny, if you're a fan, you should almost absolutely be looking at different accounts, different team accounts, because they have, I'll give you a CFL example because it's basically what I do for 6 months of the year. The Hamilton Tiger Cats and Toronto Argonauts, I mean, fan bases hate each other. It's like Hatfield and McCoys of the Canadian Football League, but they do wonderful back and forths where the exchanges they have between teams is just great. Hamilton Tiger Cats lost 2 back-to-back Grey Cups. The Argos actually had, they did a whole fantastic meme, got picked up even internationally, where they had congratulations to the Hamilton Tiger Cats for 2 runner-up medals that they had. So just to watch the interaction between different sports franchises is sometimes sometimes more interesting, I should say, than how teams react to what's going on in a game. Because when that chirping starts to happen, I mean, listen, that's what fans do. I mean, that's what part of my job is, to service fans who love to chirp and to love to one-up each other. But sometimes in real time, the best way to do it is to follow sports accounts, follow teams, even the team that you might hate. I'm a New York Jets fan, and I often will go ahead and take a look at what the Patriots Twitter account is saying when there's a Jets game, because they just lay into the Jets. And it's funny stuff, as painful as it is sometimes for me to watch.
Yeah. Ryan, what about you? Any accounts, closing remarks, anything?
I know one of my favorites from a hockey perspective is Greg Wyshynski from Yahoo, the Puck Daddy. I mean, he kind of embodies the evolution of kind of hockey coverage. He's creating so many new fans, particularly in the States, just by bringing out the lighter side of the game and just kind of the more entertaining side of it. Hockey is still a lot of old school mentality in terms of the media side and even the team side. He's really kind of embraces the new era of that. I really enjoy everything he does.
He's coming on the show at
Excellent.
one point. I'm trying to lock down a date, but yeah, he's coming on. We've been talking for a while about having him on the show. But yeah, no, he's great for sure. If I would say very quickly a couple of accounts. You mentioned Chris. Greg, Chris is the only current two-time PopTernative guest. He's been on the show twice. He was on the first ever episode, and I had him on with Justin Carr from Pac-12 Networks last month. But
great. Now I'll never hear the end of it from him, that he's been on twice and I've only been on once. He won't let me live that down.
How about this? What I'll do is, I'll make sure that you're on 2 more times, and then and I'll make sure that you will have 3. You'll have 1 on him, so it's you would have 3 times, and then he's on 2, and then I'll get him on again. So we'll do that. But yeah, all right. So thank you guys so much for coming on the show, and I really appreciate it. So yeah, this is the last episode of 2015 for PopTernative. We're going to take a 2-week break. We're back January 6th with William DeVry, who is an actor on ABC's soap opera General Hospital, which I think is going to be a lot of fun. We're also going to have Tara Sloan, who's on Hometown Hockey with Ron McLean, which is pretty cool. So everyone have a safe and fun holidays, and thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Matt. And until next time, have a great night, everyone.
Thank you for tuning in to PopTernative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of PopTernative on YouTube. Be sure to like PopTernative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.